case we're going to talk about is this one that I think about for a lot of different reasons. It was involving a client who was rear-ended by a tractor trailer of a major package delivery company. And when I show you this picture, um, you're going to be surprised at the number when I tell you later on what we settled this case for. But when you look at this photograph, you see some damage to the bumper on this vehicle. And that bumper damage, if a normal lawyer looks at it, they may just say, hey, look, I have an idea of what this case is worth, just looking at the damage to the car. But sometimes you have to go a little bit deeper than just the damage to the car. I tell my clients this all the time, and when I'm trying to train new lawyers, kind of get them to understand. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I was a defense lawyer before I was a plaintiff's lawyer. And every case is different, and so you have different types of uh, accidents, you have different type of injuries, you have different parties that are involved, you have different adjusters involved, different insurance companies. So there's so many factors that go into it. One of the biggest factors is sometimes you get the adjuster on the pre-suit before I file a lawsuit. The adjuster assigned to these cases, those individuals, there's different types. And I learned this in my 20 years and mostly in my 11 years on working as an insurance company lawyer. You have what I call true believers. And true believers, they protect the insurance company's money like it's their own. They don't think anyone's ever injured. Then you have on the other side of that spectrum, I call them lifers. And those insurance adjusters are individuals who they are just trying to move claims. They're not really evaluating anything. They're just trying to clear their docket because ultimately they get charged for how much they actually clear off of their plate. And in the middle are the folks who are actually trying to evaluate the claims. So because of that, whenever you look at this thing, you can't necessarily assign a value on these things because your client's injuries, and in this case, my client had $42,000 worth of injuries. And on $42,000 worth of injuries, old lawyers would have said, all right, let's look at 3 times the medical specials. We can get this case resolved somewhere between, $85 to $120,000. We'd be getting a good result. Sometimes you have to actually dig in and do a little investigation. Once you do that investigation, you can find some nuggets that will help drive value on these cases, notwithstanding that really insignificant damage you see in this picture. So when you have insignificant damage like that, you are immediately drawn to the conclusion that you know how much the case is worth without doing a little investigation. If you do some investigation, you can drive value. And in this case, I was able to settle it pre-lit, which means before I had to file a lawsuit, which is significant, especially when I tell you about the amount that I got on this case. Remember, my client had $42,000 worth of medical bills, and so ultimately did a little work and networking. But ultimately, I think the biggest part is that the relationships with not only the adjusters whom we have, some of these adjusters you have hundreds of cases with. And then, on the other side, if I file the lawsuit, I'm dealing with lawyers that I've had a lot of cases with. And those relationships are important. And I think that how you treat them, these adjusters and these other lawyers on one case can sometimes impact how your other cases are going to resolve with other clients. So, having a good reputation with these folks in addition to the facts and the investigation that you do, all drive value in these cases. And in this particular case, we took a case that was $42,000 worth of meds, and we got a really good result. And this was actually after the company had already made a $50,000 offer in the case. So they came and made us an offer that was more than my client's medical bills. So again, some lawyers will look at that and say, hey, look, we're already halfway there to where we want to be. But again, if you don't do the investigation, you don't drive a little bit, you don't get any value. Ultimately, we did the extra work on this case and we ended up resolving it for $250,000. And that $250,000 result was 5.9% or 5.9 times her medical bills. So that's a whole lot more than the two to 3 times her medical bills that other lawyers would have just gladly taken to resolve the case without doing any work. So sometimes, again, you can't just assume you know what you got. Sometimes you have to do a little digging. Sometimes you have to ask good questions, and sometimes you'll have to just be willing to do the work. But ultimately, you also have to make sure that your reputation and your professional ethics as you go through these cases are such that these folks, when they're dealing with you, they know you're serious about working these cases. They know that you're going to dig in and do the work on these cases, and then ultimately, again, it adds value and drives value for your clients.